Jacques Talk is sponsored by Locke Meredith Sean Fagan Injury Attorneys.
Hey, good morning, Jacques. How are you?
I'm doing outstanding. I'm talking to Garth Brooks.
Entering his second year as the LSU head football coach.
It was the only way I could get a foot in the door.
Joined by the icon, Kim Mulkey. Hey, Coach, great to see you. Breiden Fehoko played 2 years for the LSU Tigers, a 10-win team that finished in the top 10 in 2018. And, of course, the 2019 national champion dream team that went 15-0, a 6-year NFL career as well. And I think he's been a little active on social media lately. Breiden, how you doing?
JD, man, it's a pleasure. I'm super honored and blessed to be here, and excited to answer really any questions and any stir up. I'm pretty sure a lot of Tiger fans have.
Well, I'll get to that. First, I want to say that true memories of sports that touch me, hit me in the heart right here. I remember as the LSU team arrived in New Orleans a few days before the national championship against Clemson to end the 2019 season. Your parents are there, your family's there, and your mom is in tears. She's saying, my son came all the way from Hawaii to LSU, and we didn't know what was going to happen, and he's playing for a national title, and we are so blessed. It's like, those are the things that I enjoy. NIL, money, all that stuff. Okay, all right. I know that's a necessary evil, but I just really enjoyed covering you and your family at LSU.
Thank you for that. I mean, we hold LSU and the city of Baton Rouge very close, to our hearts, and phenomenal times and experiences there, and I'm glad we got to end off on a high note in 2019.
And there was the Haka dance as well, right? Coach O said he would do it if you guys beat Alabama, which you did. But did he ever do the Haka dance?
He did. He did it in the D-line room. He came in there. I'm pretty sure it was probably the Cajun version of it. The words were definitely a little not replicant of the Polynesian version, but the man stuck to his word, and great guy, great energy, and anytime you beat Bama, man, you can do whatever you want.
Great thing about LSU football, these cultures, colliding, all these Cajun people out there, and then your family doing this Haka dance, and it became a viral thing. It got millions of views online and whatnot. And you don't do it every game, right? It's a special occasion type thing.
It is. And what's crazy is it's never planned. It's always by feeling emotion. You never go into, hey, we plan to do the Haka or this and this. The Haka is one of those things, man. It's sacred. It's traditional. We hold that close to our culture and our heritage, and the ancestors have come before us. And so we were just very blessed to be able to share that with, the LSU family in the state of Louisiana.
The first time I met your family is in a hotel in Texas. You're about to play Miami in the 2018 season opener. Big season opener. They're in the top 10. And I'm talking to your dad, and he says, oh, it took a month to get here on the canoe. And we thought that was hilarious. And for you, it's literally dad joke. Like, oh, yeah, he says that joke all the time. He breaks that out every year. So right off the bat, I enjoyed meeting your folks and everybody.
Thank you for that. It's funny hearing you bring up these stories.
Yeah, well, before I chatted with you today, I was thinking I was going to my memory bank of Breiden Fehoko. There's some other things I'll talk to you about LSU, but let's move into the present. I've got a blank canvas for Breiden Fehoko today, and his thoughts on the current regime of LSU football. They're 5-1 midway through the regular season. They are a top 10 team. We know at this point they've got a trip to top 20 Vanderbilt. LSU's an underdog to Vanderbilt for the first time since the 1940s. And then they'll come back and play Texas A&M at home, who is a top 5 team at this point. They'll have an open date. They'll go to Alabama, who's a top 10 team. So we will see what happens over these next 3 weeks. But what is, I think it was a skit in Family Guy, grinding my gears. What is grinding your gears about LSU football?
I have no issues with LSU football, just the brand itself, right? I'm always going to hold LSU very dear to my heart. But when I see LSU, JD, I'm going to be honest with you. I don't see a team in the same tier as your Alabama, Georgia, Ole Miss, Tennessee, Texas A&M. I don't see it right now. And people could tell me they're 5-1. I get it, right? They're 5-1. Braden, you're nitpicking at things, but to be honest, JD, you can check the timestamps. I'm always going to be a guy that calls out the elephant in the room. I said it even towards the end of Orgeron's tenure, how guys were very um we talked about it. I said guys felt like they were enabled, right? I said there was a lot of entitlement on that LSU team towards the end of O's tenure. And I called it out. And I said early on in Kelly's tenure, when he first took over LSU, he started to nip that in the butt. And it's no hatred towards whoever's running the show in the regime there, but as a former player, as somebody who's been there, know how the program works, know what it's supposed to look like in winning at a higher level, I just don't see the 5-1 LSU being in the same tier as the higher ups in the SEC.
Yeah. Well, and last year's last year, this year's this year, but they were 6-1 a year ago, had a 3-game losing streak and fell apart. We don't want that to happen this year. Now, your side of the ball, defense, I mean, they're salty. They're great, right? So where's the problem? Offensive side of the ball, obviously they have been scoring a lot of points. They've been turning the ball over in the red zone, making some maybe silly mistakes. Is that where you're, hey, we're not up there with the other guys' complaint is?
You know, when I look at LSU during Brian Kelly's tenure, I see a high-powered offense in his early years. I see a Heisman-winning quarterback, but a horrible defense. Now it's vice versa. I see one of the premier, if not the premier defense in college football right now with an absolutely horrific offense, right? The signs are there. You barely escape La Tech at home. You barely escape the Florida Gators after DJ Lagway throws 5 interceptions at home. If your defense forces a quarterback to throw 5 interceptions at home, that should be at least 40 points on the board. No ifs, ands, or buts. I get that winning is hard, especially in the SEC now. Don't get it twisted, right? But when I see LSU and I talk about culture, I talk about the physicality, the DNA of LSU. That's what I talk about when I say the culture of LSU. I talk about guys coming off the rock, especially on the offensive side of the ball, the offensive line in particular. You looked at when we played Vanderbilt in 2019, you could have saw Jamar Chase scoring, you could have saw Justin Jefferson scoring, but what was the highlight of that game? It was Adrian McGee decleating a defensive lineman, if you remember that, right? That clip went viral. That was the culture of LSU. When people see LSU on the schedule now, it is no longer buckle your chin strap, we have LSU. It's, oh, we got LSU. Let's go get this win. And that's just kind of what bugs me the most now is I hear it. I have friends that are coaching at other schools in the SEC. One of my buddies is a quality control guy at Alabama, and I won't say his name, but quote unquote, he's saying that, you know, LSU just doesn't strike fear in other opponents, and that's really what bugs me the most.
Is it because of the modern era too that you can't build super teams like you used to? Because I mean, if we were trying to pay the 2019 LSU Tigers, I mean, we might go broke with Burrow, Chase, and Jefferson, right? Clyde Edwards-Helaire, Patrick Queen, Derek Stingley. We can go on and on. Yourself, I mean, is it because now there is so much parity in the game that it's harder to build a super team, or is LSU still not living up to what they should be under the current rules and regulations?
No, there is no parity of super teams, JD, and I feel like if you had given Ed Orgeron the opportunity to legalize fund recruits and build a program at LSU, I believe we could have set LSU up even greater for after we left LSU in 2019. Yeah, right, we had 17, 18 players go to the NFL the year after that. But if we had the ability to pay recruits legally, I guarantee you we would have got LSU set up for another championship run in a year or 2 years after prior to the fact. Now, when I look at it from this point of view, the playing field is leveled, right? Talent is dispersing amongst all colleges in the U.S., but that doesn't take away from coaching. That doesn't take away from the DNA. That doesn't take away from how you instill your game plan and how you're going to go about whooping people's ass on Saturdays.
And to your earlier point, okay, you don't want to talk with your mouth full. Winning SEC games, like winning NFL games, you never turn your nose up at a victory. But I think both of the games that LSU has won at home versus Florida and South Carolina, those teams were begging, hey, blow us out. And LSU couldn't do it. I mean, certainly Florida, like you said, the 5 interceptions, LSU against South Carolina, they fumble at the 1 yard line. They throw an interception at the 1 yard line. Early on, they get a fumble at the 17. They kick a field goal late in the game. They're first and goal at the 5 or something, right? They kick a field goal. So, okay, we could say, well, that game should have been like 40-10 instead of 20-10. And deja vu, right? Beat Florida 20-10. You could say, all right, we won. Be happy about it. We got some problems on offense. Don't talk about that. Well, you go to Ole Miss and the warts are on full display and you lose a game. So LSU's a 2.5-point underdog this weekend. And it's kind of the same thing all over again. Now, I am more encouraged the fact, Breiden, that they had over 400 yards of offense.
Yes,
I think
yes.
that they are starting to catch on. And purple and gold glasses, hopefully they not only continue to move the ball for 400, 500 yards, but this time, Garrett, see the safety, don't throw it there, and some other things and score more points.
When, I look at the statistics, right, it's cool. I acknowledge the fact that against a South Carolina team beat up, their quarterback struggling, you go and put up 400 on offense. I applaud that, right? But like you said, man, the signs are there. We're in a day and age where, right, winning is hard and winning trumps everything. But the aesthetics of how you do it, you can't hide it, man. You can't throw sugar on shit and expect it to smell sweet. Eventually, it's going to come to light and it's going to stink up the place. You know what I'm saying? And so when you start trying to brush over the fact that, hey, we're winning these games, but in the fashion you're doing so, is the offense really sustainable? When you have the defense out there, an elite defense playing 50, 60 snaps a game, it's going to catch up to you, and these problems, if you don't nip them in the butt, they become an iceberg and it tips over, man. And when it tips over, it's going to be horrific. And people are going to be back to the base of the issues and be like, where did we go wrong? Well, it's been there. It's been in your face. You just chose not to see it. That's my biggest issue is as a football player, as somebody who's been there, somebody who's played at the higher level, somebody who's been around great coaches, you have to acknowledge these things. If you're 5-1, it's cool. I get it. The vibes are high. You're a top 10 team. Cool. But your most credible win right now is against a struggling Clemson team on the road who got their ass beat by Georgia Tech, who is now underdog this week to Duke. And so
Yeah.
when you look at things in the bigger picture, put it in perspective as, yeah, we're winning games, but are we really supposed to be winning by this margin? We should be dominating these teams. And that's how I feel like when I look at the teams like the Alabama, the Georgia, the Ole Miss, it's you look at the offenses they play with, they can go up and down the field and score. I just don't see that with us,
Yeah. Well, to be fair, didn't Ole Miss just struggle this weekend?
They
Washington
did against
State.
Washington State.
And Alabama's got a loss to Florida State,
Mhm.
which, hey, Florida State's better than we thought. And then now they're kind of tanking. So there is parity out there. But let's talk about Brian Kelly. Okay. He's the head coach. Everything falls at his feet. There is some Brian Kelly fatigue. It's year 4. I think his popularity, Breiden, peaked going into the Texas A&M regular season finale in 2022. He'd inherited, in most people's eyes, a mess after Orgeron. We've said it a million times, 39 scholarship players in the Texas Bowl, blah, blah, blah. He beats Alabama at home on the big 2-point conversion. He gets LSU into the SEC championship game. They've got a chance to make the playoff. They go to Texas A&M, they lay an egg. And I think from that point to this point, I think it's kind of been up and down in terms of, are we getting any closer to where we need to be, or are we regressing? I've heard different things about Kelly when it comes to his work ethic and different things. Not me saying it, other people saying it. There's a lot of money invested in him, in this staff, in this roster. So what do you see from the outside looking in on Coach Kelly?
I have nothing against Coach Kelly, the person. He's a great guy from what I've heard, right? But being a great guy in the industry of football doesn't win you games. If I could be a great guy and people judge me off of that, I'd have a $50 million contract by now. But I'm cut. I'm out of the NFL, and that's just what it is. If you're not good enough to produce, you have to find somebody else to do it. And that's just the nature of the business of football, whether you're coaching, whether you're playing, or whether you're finding talent. If you're not producing wins, and if you're not producing at a higher level to go win the big game, somebody else has to now be responsible for that. And I think LSU is compensating way too much right now from the financial side of things to underproduce. When I look at LSU, I just, you think back to that A&M game where they laid an egg. I just see a lot of inconsistency. And one of the things that bugs me is, people talk about, well, he took over a 39 scholarship football team. He's had to rebuild it. Well, Marcus Freeman took over that Notre Dame team and took them to the playoffs and took them to a national championship appearance. And people are saying, well, that's the team Brian Kelly built. Well, I'm like, well, if that's the team he built, why couldn't he do it? You know what I'm saying? And so part of me is questioning the inconsistency. Part of me wants to see LSU become that team every year that, hey, LSU can go compete for a national championship. But when you're looking at LSU now and that regime that's over there, and they have a phenomenal defensive side of the staff. I'm not talking about Blake Baker and his crew. I think they've done a great job. But from a whole standpoint of Brian Kelly down, when people think about LSU, it's can we make it to the playoffs? It's not can we compete for a championship now. It's can we make it to the playoffs this year? And that's just kind of the issue.
Well, Kelly did reach a national championship at Notre Dame. They got beat like a drum by Alabama. And that was hard for LSU fans to watch because LSU played Alabama in Tiger Stadium that year and let them off the hook with the TJ Yeldon swing pass.
Yep, the Yeldon.
And I think he made 2 other playoff appearances, if I'm not mistaken. And so when he left Notre Dame, right, they were on the verge of making the playoff. They were on the bubble. I didn't do all this research, but I remember them. That was kind of the case, right? Orgeron, you don't think that they should have kept him, do you? I mean, or what do you think about Orgeron? I mean, look, to fire a guy a year and a half after the greatest team of all time is staggering that happened. But, and I like Coach O. I enjoyed covering him. I saw him the other day at Patrick Queen's stadium dedication. We had a great talk. But it just seemed like, oh, next man up, next man up. Well, there's no more men left, Coach. Everyone's gone. So, what is your take? I mean, I got some thoughts on him and what went wrong, but what's your take on Coach O to Kelly?
I believe the tenor of O's era was up. I truly do believe it. I do think it was time for a new time in Baton Rouge. His clock was up. I think Ed knew that. The AD knew that. Everybody in Baton Rouge knew that. It was, hey, thank you for what you've done for us, right? We appreciate the national championship. We appreciate you being pretty much the face of Louisiana at one point. Cajun bred guy, born and raised, and now he wins a national championship. He'll always be forever stamped in Louisiana, especially in Baton Rouge. But when you look at the tenor of O, right, when he took over as interim in 2017, I believe he went 6-2, JD. Quote me if I'm wrong on any of these stats. In 2018, he goes 9 we are a 9-4 team, I believe.
2018,
we were 10-3. 10-3.
Right.
10-3. In 2017, we were 9-4. I'm sorry about that.
Yeah.
2017, we're 9-4. 2018, we're 10-3, and then 2019, we go 15-0, win a national championship. So the progress you saw from Ed Orgeron was gradually increasing year after year. That's what people say, and that's particularly my argument when I talk about this Brian Kelly and this LSU regime is I don't see that gradually increasing stratosphere of this LSU team is starting to peak year after year. It's like this. It's up, it's down, it's up, it's down, and it's up and it's down. That's what I see when I see LSU. At least when O left, when he got fired, right, it was a shit show. People needed to see that. But when he was coaching in the prime of his first 3 years at LSU, you saw the gradual increase of success. And I just don't see that at LSU. Saban, Orgeron, and Les Miles all won championships in their first 4 years at LSU. So the leash has been short for those guys, and they got ran out of town. Right, the last year on O's tenor, it was horrific. But those guys, even when we were 9-4 and 10-3, man, I remember when we lost to Florida that year in the Swamp, people were calling for O's head because we let Felipe Franks run amok on us in Gainesville. And so people were talking about, man, this team's not ready, this and this. Social media was at an all-time worst. And I'm just seeing the leash for Brian Kelly. It's a lot longer than it was for these previous coaches under the LSU regime.
So it kind of feels like that under Brian Kelly, they're not going to bottom out to what Coach O at the end. They were 5-5 in 2020. I think they were 4-6 before they rallied in 21 to break even and then lose the bowl game. But they're not taking the next step to greatness either at this point. And it's kind of hard for me also because Brian Kelly's career at LSU has run parallel to the NIL and the transfer portal uprise. And so sometimes it's hard to, like a Mike Gundy, he was a great coach over there. And then in this new era, he just gets totally left behind. Dabo Sweeney kind of struggling in this new era. So I don't know what I'm saying, but I guess, I think they do need to make the playoff this year. And if they don't, LSU won't fire Brian Kelly, but a lot of the fans will fire Brian Kelly. If that makes any sense.
Yeah, I just, Jock, when I look at LSU, the 12-team playoff is much more favorable. Like, I get NIL has even the playing field, but a 12-team playoff, if there was a 12-team playoff, we make the playoffs in 2018 as a 10-3 team.
Yeah.
And I don't think the voters count that A&M, that 7 overtime loss against us, so they definitely put us in the playoffs that year because we beat Georgia, And so we would have had another playoff appearance if it was a 12-team, but man, I look at Kirk Cignetti and what he's done at Indiana, and it's just like playoff appearance last year. They're going to make another one this year. You just see gradual just increase on success with teams. Ole Miss, Lane Kiffin, he's turned that program around. People are looking at Ole Miss like contenders now, and I'm starting to think like, where is the breakthrough? And it's fine. I don't think that's a perfect statement you said, Jock. I don't think LSU will ever bottom out, right, to the worst of the worst as the end of O's tenure, right? That was horrific. The 6-6, the NIL, the COVID years, that was dark times after the national championship. And I don't think Brian Kelly will ever get that low. But if you're fine with 8-4 and 9-3, and maybe making a New Year's Six or maybe making the Sunshine Toilet Bowl in Florida, by all means, go play in it, right? Because they probably will never finish sub 500. They'll be above 500, but now you're just trying to hit quotas at this point instead of just trying to actually go do something.
What about this as a guy who has been in professional football and understands about contracts and money? And look, the horse is out of the barn, the toothpaste is out of the tube, whatever cliche you want to pick. But when you give a guy a 10-year contract and it's 90% guaranteed, look, you think that Brian Kelly comes to LSU because, okay, I've had great success at Notre Dame, but I haven't been able to take that last step. When I get to LSU, I'll have the athletes. Louisiana's got athletes. Mississippi, Alabama, Texas, I can recruit close. But how much are you motivated when you're 60 years old and you've got that kind of contract?
One of the best jobs in the world right now is to be a college football coach, because once you get fired, you can just write off that payoff and you just fly off into the sunset. Look at Jimbo Fisher. Look at all these guys. I mean, James Franklin at Penn State, right? He's going to ride off to the sunset with $50 million, bearing the, whatever undertones they had on his contract, but he's still going to see that money, right? Ed Orgeron, $15 million. Where's the door? Sign the check and tell me where to go. It's the best job in college football right now. But a 10-year contract for a guy that hasn't won the big game is just too much for me, JD. And like I said, I have nothing against BK. I was actually supportive. You can look back to our old interviews in 21. I was just looking at it the other day. I thought he was great at instilling a new culture. But when you just provide consistent inconsistency, to me, it just shows like a 10-year contract, 90% of it guaranteed. I would have did a 3-year deal. I would have had your first year guaranteed. I'm thinking of NFL terms here because that's how most teams do their contracts. They do 3-year deals. Your first year is guaranteed. Kind of just prove it, right? Show us you can do it. And then after that, we'll either work into an extension or we'll cut you off the hook. But a 10-year deal for somebody who hasn't won the big game and it just isn't proven enough is just not good enough for me, especially for a team like LSU who needs to go and compete for national championships every year, not just try to make playoff appearances.
Well, a couple of quick things. First, I was talking about this yesterday. I think that you have that window where you got to get a coach to the podium, right? And the pressure starts building. And it's like, we need a coach. We need a coach. Time is ticking, recruiting and all that stuff. And whatever happened with Lincoln Riley, did they want him? Did they not? I don't know. But it's like, well, we got a chance to get a Hall of Fame coach in Brian Kelly. What does he want? He wants a tenure. Oh, we don't want that. Well, buy now, pay later. Let's get him up there. Let's hire this guy and let's go with it. And you're in the situation you're in right now. And look, I'm not trying to be we are the world, Breiden Fehoko, but we got disease. We got roads with potholes. The LSU library needs to be fixed. I mean, I love college football as much as anybody, but $50, $60 million we could use that in so many other ways than to give a college football coach to sit on his butt and do nothing for the next whatever years. It's gross. It really is disgusting. It's America, and you can do what you want with your money. I understand all that, but man, I don't know if they can fix that or not. But it's nobody. I don't think anybody besides the guy who gets the money. And would you take it? Yeah, I'm sure I would. But anybody else looking at that, you can't say, yeah, that's right. That makes sense.
One thing I will say about the pay and how much these coaches are getting paid is the only issue outside of the inconsistency I have with BK is a lot of his pressers don't sit right with me. They don't sit right with a lot of former players. Um,
In
calling
what
out
fashion? What in what?
in calling out the players, there's multiple times, not just this year, but in years past, right, where he gets an oppressor and it's part of the blame is not towards him. One thing you ever saw during O's tenor was he always put the finger on him. And when the players were doing good, it was always on the players. If we lost games, the finger was pointed towards O, and he let that know. He let that be known in the media. Um, and I just see part of the reason is sometimes, man, where he gets up there and he's talking about, we're just not good enough or we're just not talented and this and this. It just kind of doesn't sit right. You're the coach, man. You're the guy who puts the building blocks together, right? You got to build the Taj Mahal. If the Taj Mahal is not built, don't say it ain't your fault. Don't say it is a contractor's fault because you're the eyes and you're the brain and you're the generator that makes this thing go. That's just one of the only other things I'm nitpicking at that just doesn't sit right with me. And I just think we're paying these coaches too much without proven track records.
Well, I don't want to disagree with you. I've gone to all the press conferences, and I feel like he says we've all got to be better. It falls on all of us, I think. And I think he says we got to coach better, we got to play better. I think and then some people like, oh, he says that over and over. I do think it's a new time when they lose, there's nothing he can say up there that's going to appease people or make them feel better about it. Then people want us to ask questions, and I feel like there's 100,000 people out there. There's only whatever amount of us in the press conference. I try to ask the questions people want to know within reason. Yep. Some people want me to go in there with rotten tomatoes, Breiden, and throw at the coach. Not gonna do that.
Can't do that.
But and then you ask a question, he answers, and then somebody says, "Well, what did you think he was going to say?" So at this point, it's show me, prove it on the field, get it done. What about Sloan? Are you unhappy with that or what?
I don't. I'm going to try to be as professional as possible when I say this, but I think we got so much more done with Matt Canada when he was there.
Air Canada.
Than what I saw with Joe. When we played Bama in 2017, we didn't have the quarterback talent, but the schematics we dialed up against Bama, we had deep throws to DJ Chark that are wide open. We just couldn't make those throws. When that wasn't working, we got into the Wildcat. We did things, we schemed up things. It wasn't pretty, right? I get that. It wasn't pretty. But we were always in games. And then when I see this Sloan offense at LSU, I look at Garrett Nussmeier, who was projected as a top 5 pick, Heisman favorite. And now it's just, and I don't know what's going on with the kid, whether he's injured, whether he's going through mental issues. I'm praying for him. I hope the best for him. He wears number 18 for LSU. That's the brand of LSU. You want the person to stand strong. Lloyd Cushenberry, Caleb Chason, Christian Lockature, Brandon Taylor. You can go through all these guys. Number 18's your guy, the face of the program. But I just see a lot of disconnect. I don't see an offense that just can go and compete. If you told me right now, is LSU one of the best 3 teams in the SEC to go into the playoffs, I would not put them there strictly because of their offense and how bad it is right now.
Yeah. Well, here's the encouraging thing. In the last game, although they dropped it, Nussmeier threw a deep bomb down the field, put it right on the money. So it looks like the velocity is coming back with the arm. Mm-hmm. If Caden Durham can give him something in the running game, he doesn't have to be Clyde or Leonard or Darius, but give him 70, 80 yards. That'd be nice.
Yes.
Be a nice bonus. And then hopefully they can start utilizing Barry and Brown more. Trades Green obviously is a mismatch, and so forth. And not to bounce all over the place, but circling back to O real quick at the end of 19, right? So personal stuff is personal stuff, but at the beginning of 20, he has a divorce that shocked some people. It didn't shock other people. Those divorces impact people. They're not just, I'm going to hit a reset button and just move on my life, right? So that's something. And then, Coach O was not a political person, in my opinion. He would go on Fox News. He would say, I love Donald Trump. I just thought he's like saying, I love American pie in baseball. Yeah. He's our president. He came to our game when we played Alabama. That struck some people the wrong way. There was a lot of racial tension that summer, obviously. There's always racial tension. But the George Floyd thing happened, and then guys on the team marched. And it was just a big Jamar Chase opts out on the year. Mm-hmm. There were just a lot of Miles Brennan gets hurt. It was a big, I think Jamar's dad told me it was the perfect storm of crap is what happened. Mm-hmm. And there were some things in Coach O's control. There were some things that were outside of his control,
right?
Whatever the case may be. And they never were able to overcome it. Hiring Bo Pelini to replace Dave Aranda. Woo. That was just a big air ball. Bo Pelini is a big part of LSU's history, winning a national championship in 2007. To circle back to him at that point, I don't understand. LSU was the hottest brand going at the time. Feels like you could have gotten any big-name D coordinator to come. Those are just a few thoughts on what went wrong at the end of Coach O.
One of the things, JD, that when I look at that, like you said, that Bo Pelini hire is very similar to the Brian Kelly hire after O's tenure. Is Aranda leaves to Baylor, Joe Brady leaves to the NFL, Steve Ensminger retires. Now you're just kind of scattering for the best name available, right? Because at the end of the day, the fans, right, you have to please the fans. Because if there's no seats and there's no ass in them seats, JD, you ain't gonna make money as a university, right? As much as we all love it,
nothing gets a coach fired. Sorry to interrupt. Nothing gets a coach fired more than empty seats.
100%, right? And so you got to fill seats, and part of filling seats is getting the big name guys. But when I go back to 2020 and the whole COVID incident and the BLM protests, the march, and all that, I think one of the biggest issues that nobody talks about, and trust me, I respect this guy, I love what he's done in media, but I truly think that what RC did, Ryan Clark, when he came in there, hurt the team more than helping them. I feel like he turned a lot of those guys against Coach O on words he shared in that building with those guys about, hey, man, this isn't what you want, this and this. Like, people get mad at me, right, for what I say on Twitter about the regime now. In 2020, what RC did when he came into that building tore apart that team more than people know it. And I don't think a lot of people have failed to realize that. That place was a shit show already, but it turned into a cesspool after that whole 2020 incident. And as an alumni, I get it. Your job is to support people, but man, that's one of the ways and one of the things I don't agree wholeheartedly with how things went down in 2020 towards O's tenor.
Yeah. My interactions with Ryan have been good. I covered him as a player. I just started at Channel 9. He's been good to us, but I would lie if I'd said that he hasn't become a bit more controversial in the last 5, 6, 7 years, and some of the things he said. There are some heavy hitting issues that he's tackled and that are outside of the fun and smiley part of sports with Greg Brooks.
Correct.
Kyron Lacey, obviously. Kyron Lacey. That's a loaded topic, man. That is not a cut and dry thing, at least from what I've seen. I mean, I don't want to get myself in trouble, but to just say he's innocent or he's guilty, I don't know. It's a sports story, but it's not, and it's a tragedy he's not here, and it's a tragedy that he took his life. We all know that, but that those are slippery slopes. And so anyway, we'll see. We'll see where it goes, Breiden. I got 3 minutes left on this cheap Zoom. Is there something else I should have asked you or gotten to before I let you go here?
No, man, I just, I want LSU fans to know that, part of the reason why I voice my opinion on social media is because I actually care, right? And a lot of it, too, is being a voice for a lot of my teammates who were on that 2019 national championship team, the most important ones that can't come out and publicly voice their opinions, right? Because one is people don't want people don't want to look at them as the bad guy, and I get it, right? I'll wear that cape, I'll be that guy. But man, we've been through times, man, when we were losing. We had the older guys that were there before us voice their opinions, right? We had media people come to us and tell us, man, this ain't good enough. And so, I'm letting LSU know that 5-1, it ain't good enough. Like what we see on TV is not good enough. Don't let the record fool you. We need to be a better football team. We need to be more physical. We need to punch people in the mouth. We need to put up more points on offense. We need to keep playing elite defense. And I think they can do it. I think they need to have that mentality of being contenders instead of just trying to make it into the playoffs. And that's all I have to say.
Yeah. It's like The Godfather, Braden. Don't ever speak against the family again. It's that type of thing. Yeah.
They'll have
that's the situation. They want and understandably, they want everyone to help in recruiting. They want it's positive, but there's such a thing as the middle ground and observing things objectively and, don't pee on my leg and tell me it's raining type thing,
Yep.
right? So
I love that. It's Pete Jenkins quote.
Is it? Oh, good old Pete.
Good old Pete.
Pete's going to be 100 out there running that camp in Thibodaux one day.
And still going at it.
Well, Breiden, great seeing you, man. We'll visit with you later in the season, and we'll see where LSU ends up.
Appreciate it, JD. Thank you for your time, man.